Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about being introduced. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, if one of your coworkers introduces you to someone as a programming whiz or superstar and you feel you are far from that, would you feel embarrassed? Nope. Because one part is because I'm so darn good at this thing that it's I've left that part behind, so I don't really feel that. Well, I suppose it means what you mean by a superstar. I mean, I'm not the world's best programmer, but I would say I qualify for the label they're probably trying to put on me. What I basically mean by that is that at some point, and that happens to everyone, guys, after you've been working for years and years and years. I mean, I'm not saying that no one in theory couldn't work for several years and then still not really be all that good, but guys, it's, I mean, okay, say the word superstar and computer whiz may not apply to me, but surely at some point you should, no matter how low your self-esteem, you should start to figure out that if you have been steadily working for, it's almost 10 years now, you should understand that that you are good at what you do, or that you are able to produce value, I hope. And so I wouldn't really. I mean, I'll make this a theoretical thing because there also, of course, a time when I felt that I wasn't all that good. And I mean, it's not like I know everything still. There are things that I still think that I could improve in. Uh, but at the same, but that brings us to the other part, and that is the well, why would you be embarrassed that someone else introduced you like that? It's sort of, I don't know. If someone tells someone else that you're something that you're not, or tries to sort of hype you up, at least in my culture, the overtness that might be common in other cultures isn't really. It's not really something that flies all that well in my culture. My culture, the Scandinavian culture. Well, it's not. I wouldn't say it's all Scandinavian, but it's something that does, at the very least here in Sweden. It's one of the things that is fairly important to understand, and that is that we actually have something we call jantelagen, which basically the law of Jante, which basically means that you should. It's a very people take it as a very negative concept, I think, and that is because people don't. I think at the very least they don't really understand what it's about. So the idea is basically that just because you are amazing at something, you shouldn't believe that you are amazing, because you shouldn't be arrogant, if that makes sense. And some people take that as that you should never pat yourself on the back, you should never feel good about the accomplishments that you have made. But I don't, that's not how I look at it. I look at it as this: if you are the world's best at something, realize that you are very fortunate and that you have done a lot of good work and feel proud over the work that you have done. But don't use your accomplishments as an excuse to talk down to other people because they may have had different. Well, let's just say that everybody has a different path through life. And so when you sort of understand that mindset where like it doesn't matter if you are the best of the best or if you're the richest of the richer, etc., etc., if you provide common courtesy to everybody regardless of who they are, it's really rare, I find at the very least, that the inevitable thing that happens is that when someone introduces you as a programmer, superstar, or something like that, it's almost, at least here in my region, we always do the same thing in Gothenburg. I think even my fellow countrymen from the capital usually say that the people from Gothenburg, they joke about everything. They can't just take a compliment or something like that. Everything like they just try to make a joke of everything, and in a sense, in a way, that is a little bit real, I think, because the idea is very simple. If somebody is overtly praising you or something like that, and you want to downplay that a little bit, usually making a small joke or at your own expense or something like that, or maybe going higher and saying that no, I'm actually even better than what you are telling people, right? It's a way for you to sort of loosen the potential tension and make people understand that no, actually, yeah, this person is probably really good, but they're also pretty cool about it, or they're pretty humble about the whole thing. It's sort of, in a way, it's almost comic relief. If you think about how the Marvel, like the superheroes and so forth from Hollywood, like all those movies, they almost always these days introduce some type of comic relief person or concept into the movies, because back in the old days when everything was like, it was almost, it became pretentious. It's not really right for the times. But today, even like it's really if you look for it, it's a little bit difficult to find a superhero movie, a modern superhero movie where it's just all serious all the way, because it almost becomes a little bit silly, and you almost always want to introduce some type of sidekick that is a little bit goofy, or some character that makes it a little bit, that reduces a bit of the arrogance and the prestige, if that makes sense. And that is exactly what I'm talking about. So if you feel embarrassed or things like that, it's really down to probably your own sense of self-worth. And at least for me, I haven't really had much problems with that. Even when I was a junior software developer, it was the same thing. I mean, I could, of course, not really identify sometimes with someone praising me, but you also have to remember, guys, that if I mean, if you are a junior software developer, odds are that you are a programming or like a computer whiz income. If you're being introduced to someone who doesn't do any coding, then you're probably, in comparison, pretty good at what you do. That's at least the way that I try to think about it. So what I want you to take away from this is very simple, that, well, no, I don't really feel embarrassed. It's very rare that I feel embarrassed, but that's something I'm not saying that's unique to me in any way, but I mean, this applies to most parts of my life, because it's been many years since I felt true embarrassment over something. And the reality is, as I said, guys, like when you start to understand that you're just human, and even if you're the best of the best at something, and you understand that sort of some people do the thing that I think is a little bit sad, which is that they confuse their success in one arena with overall success or something like that. And when you sort of, at least in my opinion, adopt this idea of lifelong learning and trying to be the best that you can be in all arenas that is interesting to you, you very quickly start to realize that you could be the best of the best in one thing and suck at 10 other things. And that at least has helped me to sort of stay a little bit humble. And as I said, it's also part of my culture, where here the idea is basically that be happy, be glad for the successes that you've had in life, but don't ever mistreat other people just because you are doing really well, or so forth and so forth. Treat everybody with basic decency and so forth. And so that basically brings along, you almost adopt and figure out ways of downplaying someone, sort of hyping you and so forth and so forth. And so if you're feeling embarrassment from people saying things about you, I think that you should have a little bit of a talk with yourself. Because just because somebody says that you are the best of the best, that doesn't mean that you can you just have to stand there and say, oh no, that's, and say nothing. You can make that a very pleasant interaction and sort of downplay the whole thing. I really don't think that this should be an issue for you if somebody introduces you and you say, and you go that, oh, if I'm half as good as what you claim I am, then I will probably be one of the best, or something similar to that, to that, guys. Rather than making this a very personal thing. If you get embarrassed from something like this, I think that you're taking yourself a little bit too seriously. Have a great day.